Bomb Squad Radio Massive. This is Crazy D. I'm standing here with Franklyn G. How you doing today, Franklyn?
Doing well, very well, sir. Very well.
Okay, so each week we get together and I pick Franklin's brain on knowledge to be able to pass on to the next generation, after to the next generation, after to the next generation, so that we can catch up on our self awareness. Our third eye is open. Are you agreeable with that?
Totally agreeable.
All right. So let's talk about, I'm going to break this up into a three-part question. The first part of the question, let's talk about the Egyptian mystery system and what a beginner learning about this will discover.
The first thing you discover is these are melanated people and that this culture existed way before any other known cultures of mankind, not just regular Africa or China, everybody, even America. These were the first educated, first knowledge-centered, first rhythmic people were melanated, and they were called Nubians, and they were in that fertile valley known as Egypt. So you'll see yourself.
And what does Egyptian mystery system mean?
That's what Europeans call the mystery system. The mystery system is just such they couldn't decipher what those symbols, what some people would call hieroglyphics, which other people would say are just animal figures, or even if something like the Netermeter. There's an individual, his name is Dr. Ben. He wrote a book called Black Man of the Nile. That's the beginning. It's the beginning of understanding the concept that these people were, there was a culture that existed, that there was a hierarchy that existed, that there was knowledge that existed, that these things were what made the time, at that time, the most powerful region, the first language concept of writing, the first language concepts of math. But Dr. Ben is on the net. You can probably find some of his old lectures on YouTube. You can also try to find Professor Ashra Akwesi and his wife Mirawa, because they were students of Dr. Ben. And I would say he's the founder of Kemet in terms of the chematology and diagnostic that we use. His transcription and his understanding of the symbols that were transferred into language that made us understand who some of these great leaders were. So it's not a mystery to those who want to go and do the in-depth research as he did by transcribing to the best of that time's knowledge, which still is concurrent, what these actual symbols mean. And they were telling different stories of great pharaohs, great wars, the entire concept of medicine, the entire concept of mathematics, and things of that nature. You have to have the understanding of what it is on those walls that still exist today that we can see, not just so much in the Nile Valley, but even all the way down to the Sudan, this original language, so to speak, of writing.
So when you say the Sudan, just to break off a little bit, you're pretty much saying that the migration of Egyptians moved from what we knew as the early Egypt down to Sudan, and the Sudanese people are actually Egyptians who moved.
Well, not so much that the Nile travels down the Crescent Valley. So when I say Sudan, that those particular people are inscribed on the walls as Sudanese because of the different, I guess, cultural existence. Egypt unto itself, because of its travel and because of its location and what it did and allowed for travel from Alexandria, which is the top, all the way down. So the Sudanese people have been there, and they may have been called different names, but you see their stories. When I say seeing what's happening down the Nile, because there's two parts of the Nile. There's the Blue Nile, there's the White Nile. Then they meet, and that's what the research will tell you, how they came across having this entire landmass under one supposed theory of these Ra, which was gods at that time, Egyptians. They were all melanated. They were all black. You even see Asian figures on the wall when they had wars with the Asiatics. The Syrians, you see them on the wall. The Phoenicians, you see them on the walls. So not all of them are melanated to the same extent as the Nubian. The Nubian is a black man. So as you would see, even in Sudan, the ethnic features that they may have in Ethiopia or even in the Sudanese are kind of, the genophenotype is kind of the same. You can look at it. It's just the cultural differences that made up the mass lands of those regions and who was in control at that time. So that's when I say the Nubian people of the Nile and travel. It was all down the Nile, which travels, as you know, all through Africa. Pretty much.
So Dr. Ben went to battle psychologically, socially, and educationally against the European who claimed that Egyptians were white and were always white, and that somehow the statues because the sun burnt the statues black. Is that what's happening?
The Europeans who came down in conquest figured that they called them even Caucasian Negroids because of the technology that existed. There's a gentleman named Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and also Dr. Ben Yokeman. You'll see that their transcriptions, Ivan Van Sertima wrote books to refute what the Europeans have been saying in terms of the pillaging and the things that have gone on. That's why they try to give Egypt not so much an African concept, but a Middle Eastern concept, if you will. Even in Morocco, they try not to make those places so Semitic to Africa. It's part of Africa. Those were African people. So when you read Ivan Van Sertima and he's refuting what the European scholars had been reporting for years and in teaching for years, his work is unparalleled in terms of his decimation of the information that these were black people, which is at the origin of all of it. Most of the origins for the Europeans were they're Middle Eastern people. The Arab you see today is not the Nubian you see on the wall in Egypt of that time, and it was called Kemet. So what his work and what their research did is it refuted what was the normal standard being the normal standard being taught, not just here in America, but through universities in Europe where it spread. When you read these two gentlemen or get an opportunity to see Ivan Van Sertima's lecture where he actually proves melanated people made these things by the research that he's uncovered it was French first. So its importance is it's in English. That's how important it was. It was transferred over. But these two gentlemen were the beginning of the concept to put blackness back into Africa.
And two questions back to back. Did the European ever concede that they were melanated people? And two, what are the top books for beginners to start to read?
Yes, they were. Ivan Van Sertima went with Dr. Ben, and they had a big conference where they actually made these things and reported the truth facts. That's also on Facebook and the papers that they wrote to refute them. They have these sessions at large colleges and things of that nature where they uncover these things and talk about the things. The same way they change the Bible at these kind of conferences. They have conferences. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima and Dr. Ben went at them, and you can see that and read that. The two books to read are definitely Black Man of the Nile, which is Dr. Ben's. I mean, it's a little deep, but you can also get some, because of technology, and I recognize some of our listeners like YouTube, you can go to YouTube. And you can see their lectures, or the parts of their lectures that they talked about that. And again, if you get a chance to look at Professor Ashura Kwesi, who is doing his thing in his organization, they've been traveling with Dr. Ben, and you can see pictures of him and Dr. Ben as a young man, and now him doing it himself with his lovely wife, and they have several books. But there's a whole new undercurrent. There's a prophetic group, there's a Sonetta network, which some people may want to look up because they have people on there who are now like Brother Jabari, and even if you wanted to say General Seti, and there's a whole youthful organization. And this is all on the internet, and you can even check out Captain Taziki. These are individuals who have gained some knowledge and some popularity through the internet. They've done some of the research, they understand some of the concepts, and sometimes they're right. But again, as you know, things change under different tutelage and lineage. What Dr. Ben is offering is the format. What they're offering now, maybe for a younger demographic, and as I said, Sonetta Network has a lot of the different people who are now claiming that they are, whether black Nubians or black chematologists or even just the culture consciousness of what it is, because he has the House of Consciousness also. These individuals are dissecting the same information under a more youthful banner. And again, that's the Sonetta Network. But if you want to start with the original, it's Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Ben. Anything you can get from them, you'll move on. Then you can move into Professor Leonard Jeffries, whose analysis of what it is when we have melanated people. Then you get Professor James Small. And as you know, Runoko Rashidi travels all over the world. There's a set of consciousness individuals out there. Dr. Tony Browder, who also has trips to Egypt. There's so many folks in ways you can find this knowledge out to sustain you. Because once you know that you were this, no matter what they tell you you are now, you know that you came from greatness. So that allows you to understand and conceptualize yourself different. Just what Ivan Van Sertima did when he went against the professors and the thought at that time to transcribe the information and show the melanated nature of the average Egyptian. So all that information is there.
So last question. What is the purpose? You kind of answered it, but I want to go more deeper. So this is the last question. What is the purpose for us to learn that the Nile Valley and that Egypt, Kemet, was Nubian? What does it do for us to know that overall?
Well, overall, when you see how great it is, because in this particular society at this time, everything's European. You learn about George Washington. You learn about Queen Louis XIV. You learn about Aristotle and Plato. If you go back further, you'll see that those people, they took the knowledge that they sustained themselves with and their culture came from Africa. If you see greatness in you, like when you see something that you think you could do, it should represent you. When we see Michael Jordan, because he's black, you think you could play like Michael Jordan. When you see KRS-One rap, you think you can rap because you're black. If you think that you have mathematicians in your background or geniuses such as Imhotep, you'll believe that you can do that. You can sustain yourself against the racism that we see here. By going to Egypt and just doing the work and reading these books, you'll know that something better than yourself existed, something better than what they're giving you, in order for you to believe in, even in Jesus Christ. If you go to China, their Jesus Christ is Chinese. It is attaining the highest level of peace and understanding that they could have. So that's what you would want to be. If you look at a white Jesus, you're like, I'm not going to be white anytime soon. How can I have blonde hair and blue eyes and be a savior? But if you know that that Jesus was reflective of a Nubian person and that was a black story, you could say, oh, I can attain these levels. So seeing yourself in greatness is the first step. You have to be able to believe in yourself. If you knew that your family or that you were slaves, they'll keep you conceptualized as slaves. That's why they put that energy forth here in America. Let's go before we were slaves, where we had tribes. Not saying everybody was a king, but we had tribes. We worked together in villages. You help me, I help you. We grew, we spread, we traveled the world. Black man is the first man on the planet. When you know those kind of things in this oppressed society, at least for me, it sustains me. So I know that all of the greatness that once ran through my bloodline, because Nubians and the original man, the Asiatic black man, was a black man, if they could achieve those things, if I could be a pyramid builder, if I could make the first chariot, if I could understand the first concepts of mathematics in my format, then I can believe I can do it. Why do you think that certain cultures, especially like they would say, Jewish people are business-minded? Because he saw business-minded people. Why are Asians so good in mathematics? Because they believe in mathematics. They saw their own selves in doing business with themselves. The black people here, unfortunately, a lot of the images that we get, that things that we could do, are given to us. A bank teller's a white person. Your teacher's a white person. The cop's a white person. Your doctor's a white person. If you saw more black people doing those things, you would believe you could do them too. The fact that we don't kind of systemically keeps us in a chain. But that's why it's important to go back and get this knowledge. Because one, if it wasn't important, they would give it to you. Because it is important, they're not going to give it to you. So the concept of thinking outside of the box is where that comes from. And we've always been outside the box. When you recognize that, you'll be better off. That's just my belief.
And that's it. When you understand or overstand the once greatness that we have, or the greatness that we have, that's the first step. So we'll leave it there. Bomb Squad Radio.